Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today, a Thursday, February 6th edition. I am Marsh, joined on this trade deadline morning by Rick Blaze. Good morning, Rick. Can you feel it in the air? The seeds of
Hey,
change have come across us.
he is I, and I am him. Slim with the tilted brim.
There it is. We've got a lot to get to. We're actually going to finally talk a little bit of Super Bowl. Don't worry, tomorrow will be a full-on show as we talk about the big day of Sunday. But we're also talking a big Princeton win last night. But we're starting with the biggest news of last night as the onslaught of big-time blockbuster trades in the SWBA rolls on, and that is Jimmy Butler headed to the Golden State Warriors in a four-team deal, excuse me, that sends Jimmy Butler to Golden State and Andrew Wiggins and a first-round pick to the Miami Heat. That's the high level, that's the notables of this one. Rick, your immediate takeaways from the latest domino to fall.
Well, I can tell by the excitement in your voice that you are very excited about this situation. I think a desperate team overpaid a guy who's now worth $60 million a year, frankly. And I don't think this moves them into contender category either. The KD, if KD said he didn't want to come back to Golden State, but if KD is in this situation, if this is KD, not Jimmy Butler, they're definitely in the top 5 now, I think, in the West. With Jimmy Butler, I don't know. Does it improve their team? Yes. Does it improve the team as much to now they're title contenders? No. Does it improve the team? Does it warrant $60 million a year from a team that was obviously desperate? No. This was capitalism at its finest. They saw a team who needed somebody, who was desperate to get somebody, and Jimmy say, "Okay, cool. 60 million?" They're like, "Sure, what do we sign? Cool. 60 million, let's go with it." I think they definitely overpaid for a 35-year-old guy who's on the decline, who has more NBA, SWBA behind him than he does in front of him. It does make them a better team overall. I assume they're going to gel sooner than later into the system, but does this solves their issue? Does this make them a competitive top 5? I don't think it does, actually. I think it looks good. I think it sounds good. It's a lot of noise. They got somebody, but I don't think it really solves their woes.
So there's going to be a whole lot of attention on that extension that Jimmy Butler just signed. Here's the thing, I'm not too worried about it. Let's start on the ball.
It's
Let's
not your
start on the
money.
court. Well, no, but I'm saying for the organization, but on the court, this is a much needed move. Now, the Golden State Warriors were reluctant to include Andrew Wiggins in any deal because if by doing so, they would lose their primary on-ball wing defender. That's why they were very reluctant to include him in a Zach LaVine deal. It's why they weren't deep in that. I think they might have been moving closer to it, but they were not going to make that deal, that being the primary reason. Jimmy Butler answers that question. Jimmy Butler is still a primary wing defender. Is he peak Jimmy Butler? Sure isn't. Right, but at 35 years old, he's still a very, very competent wing defender who can be the guy in a playoff series that defends Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, LeBron James, whoever, Ja Morant for Memphis, if you got to deal with them, Jamal Murray in Denver. That's what Jimmy Butler does. Okay, that's point one. Point two, they needed somebody else to score the ball. They played last night in Utah, and guess what they didn't have? Anybody who could do anything secondarily on the ball next to Steph Curry. The same happened against Orlando Magic, and the same has been happening all season long and really since the 2022 season. Andrew Wiggins was supposed to be that secondary guy, and he's just not consistently there. Jimmy Butler is. Now, are there going to be some awkward fits? There sure are, because between him and Draymond Green, they don't really have 2 3-point shooters on the floor. Big question mark of how you play Jonathan Kuminga in that lineup. They've got Quentin Post, who's been starting at the 5. It's a good 3-point threat. But you won't be able to start Jonathan Kuminga, which was kind of the question mark in his absence with Quentin Post. Now we're getting a little deep dive, but anyhow, a little awkward fit there from a 3-point shooting, but you've done it for the entirety of Steph Curry's career with, not entirety, but Kevon Looney has been a starting center next to Draymond Green. It's doable is the point. To the money. So on the floor, this is a win. Do they think they're contenders? I don't think they think they're contenders, but they're a heck of a lot better today than they were yesterday, right? Yesterday morning, they were not as good of a basketball team as they are when they wake up today after the game in Utah last night. That's a win for this organization. They needed to be better. They needed to be a team that can be a 4 or 5 seed, depending on the matchup you get, depending on how things break. I mean, we look at what we saw with Dallas last season. They get hot, they make a run to the SWBA finals. Am I saying Golden State is making a run? No, I am not. But you are a better team today that's better positioned to allow yourself as a potential runway. The contract extension, 2 years, $121 million. I think it's a player option on that second one, which means he's going about, $60 million, like you said, across the 2 years. I saw one report that is 111, but I can't seem to find that. I think it must have been a typo. So 121. I'm not concerned about $60 million to Jimmy Butler. Why? Because he gave up no draft capital to bring in Jimmy Butler. You gave a protected first-round pick that's top 10 protected this season, which means Golden State hopefully doesn't have to use it, because otherwise the wheels do indeed fall off of this wagon, and then it moves to a protected pick in 2026. So if you need to get off of the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes, you've got the draft capital still in place that you can attach, and it's this season. You put it next season where he's paying $60 million, and then it's an expiring contract. And expiring contracts are a heck of a lot easier to move in the SWBA. If you just take a look at Russell Westbrook going back a couple years, it's a heck of a lot easier to move, especially with draft capital. And now you don't have to pool a bunch of pieces together to try to make your next star trade. Golden State's better position. I'm not saying they're going to make one, but they're better positioned now to make another big swing again. They have continued, ever since Kevin Durant left, they have continued to restock the coffers with guys that allows them to continue to have the trade asset, right? It was first it became Andrew Wiggins, and then it became D'Angelo Russell. Then you used that asset to trade for Andrew Wiggins. You now use that asset to trade for Jimmy Butler. Go back to the Jordan Poole extension. They used that to go get Chris Paul, and then they bring in Chris Paul. They let that slide, but they used sign and trade of Klay Thompson to bring in Buddy Hield. Now, these aren't huge moves, but they are contractual moves that allow you to continue to reset a team that is consistently without salary cap space.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think the B part of that contract is what you're saying is you went all in for the next one
2
this
years.
season and probably next season with Jimmy Butler, and he's a rental, but it cost you Andrew Wiggins as a rental, a young player who's not a superstar, but who can be a solid player for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and who was by far the second best player in the playoffs for the Golden State in 22, offensively
the problem
and
is he wasn't moving it. I mean, all of those things are absolutely correct. But the problem is that Andrew Wiggins is best served as a number 3 guy, right? Now I'm not saying they did it, but if you moved Draymond Green for Jimmy Butler, then Andrew Wiggins looks so great on this basketball team because he can be the third guy who you have two primary focuses of the opposing defense. The problem is Andrew Wiggins hasn't been that guy, right? Since the version of him in 2022 was the All-Star, which he was in 23, which his numbers, by the way, are on par with those All-Star numbers. But he was an All-Star. He was the second best guy in the WBA finals. He didn't come close to winning the MVP, but he looked pretty damn good. And he carried them in that Game 5 win that set them up for the championship in Game 6. That is absolutely a version of Andrew Wiggins. But with this team, as it's currently constructed, they need more than that. And they just had not been getting that right now. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You needed an upgrade. You made the all-in move. It does cost you Andrew Wiggins, but I still think it was the right move for this team with what they're doing. People are going to ridicule it. I think it's a B-plus deal, right? I think it's a B-plus deal for the Golden State Warriors. All right, let's move on to the Super Bowl, where we have not talked about it somehow because, again, I said this yesterday, the SWBA has done one hell of a job of dominating the conversation in the week leading up to the Super Bowl. The two things that are coming out of Super Bowl Media Week have been the fact that the refs claim to think that they're not playing, they're not rigging the game for the Chiefs. And then yesterday, Travis Kelce's comments about those who would be in attendance at the game on Sunday. So let's talk about the game on the field. Rick, who do you like in this one? Eagles Chiefs, the biggest game of the year.
You know, I would like to see my man from Channelview, Texas, Jalen Hurts, get the dub with the Eagles. That's what my heart wants to win. But you know, I've said this before about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has moved into the Tom Brady-esque era for me, as in I will be a fool to bet against him as I used to do against Tom Brady so many many times, especially like the last 5 years of his career. I kept saying, well, he can't do it again, can he? And he will do it again every single time. Break your heart every single time. Break your wallets every single time. I've learned my lesson from Tom Brady. So although I want the Eagles to win, I do not bet against number 15, Patrick Mahomes, because he has that Tom Brady-esque, like je ne sais quoi. When it comes close, when the knees of play need to be made, he will make it every single time. So my heart wants the Eagles to win. I want to see my man from Channel View get it. But if I had to pick a team and it was everything was on the line, I do not bet against Patrick Mahomes. Period.
Not last week, 2 weeks ago was the point that last season everyone was talking. Pretty much that last season was they can't do it. This is just a very flawed Chiefs team, and they don't have home field advantage. And what do? They march on the road to Baltimore, they win, and they march their way on to a Super Bowl and get the eventual championship over the 49ers. To me, at every step of the way, it felt inevitable. I felt like I had premonitions. I said, Chiefs are winning. From the start of the playoffs, the Chiefs are winning. It doesn't matter that they're not the number one seed. It doesn't matter that they don't get the bye. They're winning it all. This season, I looked at this team and said, they're not winning. I took that same premonition. I said, I know this. Chiefs ain't going to win. I said, the Bills are going to beat them. I knew it. And then the Bills didn't beat them. And here we are again. And I want to sit here and say that the Eagles are going to win. I like that they have a good running game. The problem is the Chiefs have a sick running defense. And to your point, and to everyone's point, I don't think this is breaking news, Patrick Mahomes is Thanos. Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. Now, the biggest question is, are the Infinity Stones on the hand of Patrick Mahomes when he snaps inevitability this time or not? Or did somebody swoop in and did Iron Man, a.k.a. Saquon Barkley, come in and take away the Infinity Stones before he can snap it and he doesn't know what's happening? That's the only way this team wins. We said it before with the Washington game. The Eagles are winning and losing on the back of Saquon Barkley, and Saquon has single-handedly revived the value of the running back, but I just don't pick against Patrick Mahomes. It is a rule I made for myself about 2 years ago. You're not picking against him. Ever since that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes. I'm taking the Chiefs, and I don't love it, but at least we can say a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades from now that we watched one of the it would be the greatest run of a single team and a quarterback in SWFL history if they pick up the first three-peat in league history. All right, let's head to last night in college basketball. Let's head to there where the Princeton Tigers finally get a massive test on their resume, and they pass it just like they pass every other test that the Brainiacs up north managed to do. 87-79 win on the road against the Memphis Tigers. They shot 2 3-pointers in this game, Rick. They had 23 made free throws, and they end up with 87 points. Your takeaways from a massive Princeton win?
Hey, man, look. We're in the new times. I never thought I would see the day where I'm excited for Princeton basketball. They're ranked number 16 right now in the AP.
Yep.
They should be skyrocketing. Anybody can make an argument they should have been ranked higher than 16 to begin last night.
Yep.
That's not a somewhere between 10 and 12 maybe, right?
Yep.
I think
some idiot on this show said that a couple nights ago, I think.
Somebody would have.
Lighter complexioned individual, I think, might have mentioned that.
I forgot who it was. He has terrible
lighter
face.
Complexioned individual. That's all
terrible face.
You're not wrong.
So I think they make the big leap. They were at 16. I think AP does. I think AP kind of overcorrects the jump and makes them like top 10. And I ain't mad at that because I'm not mad at that. The last time Princeton has been ranked somewhere in the top 10, you got to go back to 1966, 1967 season where it was ranked number 5. The 60s. They was doing doo-wops and things like of that nature. Chuck Berry days. You got to go back to Chuck Berry. The last time Princeton Tigers in basketball was the top 5 in the AP ranking. So, or top 10 in the AP ranking. So, they're for real though. Let's all jokes aside, all time capsules aside. the Princeton Tigers are for real. That little short, little bitty thing that look like Prince on the court, Misty. Oh, he's a highlight. That look when he jumps up. We gotta check his shoes. He must have a pogo stick. What is his vertical? I have to find his vertical. It has to be 51 inches or something. It has to have he's like 4'10", but when he jumps, yeah, it's like Muggsy Bogues with a vertical. It's bananas. But the Princeton Tigers overall, man, got to give them credit. Can't say enough about those guys. They're playing really, really, really good. I'm cheering for them. They're like my underdog story for the rest of the season, and they've captured the imagination of most. I've seen who's watched them play this year, and go Tigers.
They haven't been ranked in the top 10 since 1998 when they peaked at number 8. They're going to be obviously continuing their streak of weeks in the top 25. This team does it in ways that are unconventional. It is challenging to get to 87 points and not make a single three and only take 2 of them. They shot 51%, so all of your attempts are coming in high percentage areas. I love the fact that they're getting to the line. Tyshawn Penn dominated inside, forced his way to the line 11 times, made 10 of them. That's the difference in this game, is the reluctancy by Memphis to be able to get to the paint. They had 4 free throws. A plus 21 free throw mark for Princeton in a 8-point win is absolutely impressive. And that, again, it's always to me, big wins, what's replicatable in Hoopsteria, right? You can't be hyper reliant on 3-pointers. You got to win the game in a bunch of different ways. And at the end of the day, you've got to be able to step in on defense and play efficient on defense. And Princeton completely dominated the pace of that game, getting to the free throw line 30 times in that game. You want to look at how do you win 6 straight games in Hoopsteria. It's games and it's performances like that where you just fight your way inside. You're not trying to just hope you get red hot from deep and run away with a win. It's get to the shots that you want to take, get to the free throw line, and play sound defense in the second half, which is exactly what Princeton did last night, holding Memphis to just 35 points. That you can look at and you can say, okay, if we get that, we know we've got a version of our team that can play kind of rough and tumble basketball for 40 minutes, and that's what we need to do come Hoopsteria. So for Princeton, I think this is a huge statement win. To your point, I think they'll end up somewhere between 9 and 12. I've said they were a number 3 seed. If I were to do it last Sunday, that does not change. They got another win. I think they've got a legitimate case to move up higher than that, but they'll need to keep stringing them together. But I also think we're going to get a Princeton-Memphis rematch in the American Conference game because those are the 2 best teams in the American right now. All right, that's our show. We're coming back tomorrow. We will probably recap what has continued to be a chaotic afternoon and night and into the morning in the SWBA with the trade deadline. How about the Charlotte Hornets getting more first-round picks for Mark Williams than the Dallas Mavericks got for Luka Doncic? There's something for you. So we'll recap all of that tomorrow. And then, of course, another look at the Super Bowl to come ahead. And don't forget, we've got more hoops, man. We've got more hoops tonight on SimWorld TV. That's Oklahoma State and Texas, and then Oregon and Arizona. That all starts at 8 p.m. With the Longhorns trying to extend their winning streak. And Oregon, they've been a runner. Arizona's a fringe top 25 team. They'll battle in Pac-12 play tonight. All of that coming up on SimWorld TV and ESPN. All right, Rick, as always, great to see you. We're coming back tomorrow morning on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.
This has been a presentation of SimWorld